Let's do it.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, you know who this is. This is your boy, Brando, and I'm back with a special guest. Ladies and gentlemen, today we have with us Larry Payne, Head of Business Development at Iotex. I'm sure, I hope I said your name right.
You got it, man. How's it going? Glad to be
Doing good, man.
joining the Bigger Than Race podcast today.
Yeah, man, I'm really excited to have you here. We've shared a lot about Iotex in one video, and when we do things on this channel, we like to go deep. And Iotex, I even overlooked it in the past. I was like, but then something brought me around back to it. And as I dug a little deep, I found out that Iotex is going to be revolutionizing the IoT industry, that whole space. And
100%, yeah.
Yeah, and I'm just excited to talk about it with you because I'm sure you can.
The project is pretty complex. It was pretty wide ranging, right? Like the vision of creating a more trusted Internet of Things is pretty clear to people, but all the components that are required to reach that goal, I think, are so far and in between, right? It requires technology, it requires community, it requires kind of the hardware side of things, and it requires tokenomics to kind of bring it all together into this ultimate vision that we have. And I think, throughout the past 1 to 2 years, you see a lot of different pillars of this stuff kind of coming out. But what I love to do today is kind of connect all those pillars together. Sometimes it seems a little random, the things that we're doing, but everything's going towards this focus of building a real ecosystem, not just a single product. So it sounds like you've been with us through that journey for a little bit, but there's so much stuff to it, man. I'm really excited to dive deep into it, like you said.
Yeah, so then let me ask you this. Why did you guys start with a camera? Like, why was that the first product launched?
Yeah, as some context for people that maybe are new to Iotex, right? At the core of what we do, we're a smart contract platform, but we've designed this thing and built it completely from scratch to be tailor fit to support the Internet of Things. The Internet of Things is basically all of these smart devices that are now connected to the internet that, honestly make our lives a lot more convenient. But the thing that's really preventing the next massive wave of adoption of these devices is the security and privacy side of things. So what we're trying to do with blockchain is kind of extend the principles of blockchain of being verifiable, trustworthy, secure, etc., to the devices that we use on an everyday basis, whether in our homes or in our businesses or, in our cities. So, to your point, the first device that we've kind of launched on the network is called UCam. It's basically a home security camera that's powered by the Iotex blockchain for a number of reasons, right? A lot of people, the biggest question we get about this camera is like, cool, you threw blockchain on it for marketing, but it's really the complete opposite of that. We're using blockchain for a really purpose fit and amazing type of benefit to the security cameras out there. So we use blockchain both as the login for this camera. As we all know, our funds, our keys are funds, right? Bitcoin has taught us that. Every private key we've ever used has taught us that the key to our privacy of our funds is this private key, right? So bringing that into the device world, devices these days, like all these Ring cameras, what's happening is all of the hacks that happen are really all about two things, right? The fact that it's password based and passwords are really easy to crack these days. And the second is the fact that all of our data is owned by these corporations in decrypted form on their centralized servers. And we have no idea what's going on in that black box, right? So UCam directly solves for both of these major issues with security cameras today. We use the uncrackable private key as the login for the camera. And just like that, we also use the private key to then end-to-end encrypt all of the videos of the users. Wow. So, and the last part of it is we do all the processing on the camera or the mobile phone itself. So there's no centralized servers. The only place where your data is ever decrypted is on the devices that you own, the camera and your phone, and you're the only one with access to that encryption key, which is your private key. So, you know, just to go back to your original question, why do we start with something that, you know, seems so complex, right? There's a lot of more simple IoT devices out there, like a light switch or, you know, just a typical temperature sensor. You know, these things are very simple, but I think that starting with this very challenging device, you know, a camera is just a sensor, right? A security camera is just a very high power advanced light sensor. And working with these complex devices really taught us the ins and outs so that we can conquer any other type of IoT device out there, right? There's nothing more heavyweight and secure and kind of the need for security than a live stream video of your living room. So giving us the internal challenge of building this out, now we're ready to conquer all of these simpler devices and bring them onto the blockchain as well. So, you know, I think that was a longer explanation of UCAN, but important to set the context that this is using blockchain for a brand new purpose, which is protecting our data from our smart devices. And I think that's just really freaking cool, you know?
Yeah, no, I mean, it's really cool because, like, for me personally, I want to know what's going on in my house when I'm not there. If somebody's sneaking around trying to make peanut butter jelly sandwiches without me knowing, I need to know about that. So,
Exactly.
but no, I mean, it's really cool, and I can't wait to
You
get.
want actually, you know, you want to know what's going on, but you also want to know that other people don't know what's going on. You're the only one that should have the 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 ability to know what's going on in your own home, right? And
True.
once we start talking about cameras in public spaces or cameras at the gym or cameras in a hotel, the conversation becomes a little different. I mean, every time you walk into a big supermarket today or any kind of, you know, building that is well funded, there's security cameras on there, you know, right when you walk in. Any big chain hotel you walk into, not that we're spending much time in hotels these days during the pandemic,
Right,
but
right, right.
imagine yourself walking into a 24-hour fitness or an Equinox. Right when you walk in, your face is scanned and they'll follow you throughout the building. And that's just security, right? In
Right.
public spaces, big debate going on about who owns that video. You know, if you know someone catches a crime just on a video camera, but you know it's kind of like uh, if you didn't hear a tree fall in the forest or you didn't see it fall, you know, did it make a sound type of thing, right?
Right.
But within our homes, it's a completely different conversation, right? We really need to own everything that's kind of like a derivative product of ourselves. And I think, you know, we're just starting to realize that. People are just starting to realize that owning our data also means that, you know, we can keep it absolutely private if we want to. So that's
Mm.
a really big use case of the data that we own. But the other ones that are really exciting is, you know, we can eventually monetize, sell this data, trade this data in tokenized form. And that's another big aspect of, you know, what
Wow.
Iotex is really trying to achieve.
Yeah, I didn't think about it that way because, definitely everything will be tokenized, and the tokenized data would just take everything to another level. Now, taking it to another level, let me ask you this question because you mentioned ring light. And if I'm not mistaken, Amazon bought a ring light. I mean, not
Yeah,
ring light, but the ring. Yeah.
camera. Yeah.
So, and I see the connection between you guys, Iotex, and Amazon, and through the IIC, Industrial Internet Consortium. Let me ask you,
Right.
are is there some are what are you guys going to be bringing with? I don't know if you can even tell me this, but what kind of things are you going to be integrating with Amazon? I mean, because I know they like those cameras, so I'm curious.
Yeah. So well, you got to understand Amazon is literally the world's biggest corporation, right? And they are made up of hundreds of smaller corporations, right? Amazon's the parent company and they have their name across the board, whether it's Amazon.com, the place where you buy toilet paper and groceries these days. They have Amazon Web Services that's powering, you know, 50% of all startups bandwidth these days. They have, you know, all of these different smart home and wearables products that they're launching under different, kind of legal entities. You know, Ring Camera is one big one that they outright acquired. I think this was back in 2016, and then they got Shaq to do all the commercials, and Ring really blew up, right? Uh,
Right.
and then, you know, there's so many different business entities. Just like Google has Maps, they have email, they have Chromecast, they have all these different things, right? So it's important to think about, you know, when we say, hey, we're working with Amazon on these things, we really got to understand what business entity we're talking about, right? So the closest tie that we have to Amazon, you know, there's a couple different ties. One of them is the fact that we just listed UCAM on Amazon as a kind of the first blockchain powered product to really be available to the masses on Amazon, right? And
Yeah, I saw that. Congratulations.
yeah, for sure. But that's, you know, that's something that, you know, we're not trying to say, you know, this is a partnership with Amazon, right? Everybody has the ability to list their product on Amazon. But the
Right.
real milestone for that is the fact that, you know, we beta tested this UCAM thing for the past like 9 months with people that knew about crypto, with people that didn't know about crypto, made several different iterations throughout the past 9 months just to get this product to be, you know, what we consider to be mass market ready, right? And
Right.
listing on Amazon is kind of our way of showing the world that, you know, we put a lot of work into this, and hell yeah, we're going to list it on Amazon and, you know, make it available 2-day prime delivery for everyone in the country, right? So
Absolutely.
I think as more people start to, you know, understand the need for privacy, especially with their security cameras, but we hope that they look to this. But, you know, we're not a camera company, right? We're the
Right.
platform, and we want to build more products just like UCAM that are privacy centric and things like that, right? So the other tie we have to Amazon is really kind of on the enterprise side of things. We are currently the co-chairs of the Industrial Internet Consortium.
That's exactly where I was going to go next. But go ahead.
So along with representatives from Huawei and Amazon, we're the co-chairs of this blockchain working group within the IIC. And the IIC, you know, was founded by companies like General Electric, Dell, Microsoft, as kind of this consortium of 300 plus technology enterprises, mostly focused on the industrial IoT space, meaning things like manufacturing, logistics, those type of things, right?
Right.
So the goal of this consortium is to bring together corporations in a collaborative way, right? We all know on the free market, we live in a capitalistic environment, right? These enterprises don't play along well, but the fact that, you know, everyone has non-interoperable standards, the fact that, you know, a lot of these systems don't integrate well together. It's kind of like the same thing we're seeing in the blockchain, right? It's very tribal. The same thing exists in the enterprise world. So this consortium is the meeting ground for enterprises to collaborate together, right? So
Right.
it's composed of the biggest companies in the world. You know, they meet on a quarterly basis. We met in Orlando. We met in Disneyland of all places,
Mm-hmm.
in Anaheim, in California, and you know, we've been at this for the better part of a year plus now, maybe almost 2 years coming up,
Right.
and a lot of people ask us like, what's the goal of submitting all this research and participating in these collaborative workshops and, you know, trying to work alongside these enterprises? Because, you know, not only are we contributing our expertise in blockchain to these enterprises that are closely watching, but it's also leading us to new enterprise partnerships. The one that we just announced yesterday is with this company called WiseKey.
Yeah,
They're
saw that.
they're a public company, NASDAQ listed, and also listed on the Swiss stock exchange. And they're, you know, just a very big IoT chip manufacturer that we met through the IIC. You know, we met kind of developing research together, reviewing research, peer reviewing stuff. And that's how the conversation got started, is we both realized we're working on similar things at the intersection of these secure chips, secure hardware, and blockchain, right? So that's what's sprouting from this. I mean, it's important, again, you know, we are not saying we're directly partnering with Amazon. We are, you know, co-chairs of this organization, this consortium that's kind of leading the development of this research. But at the same time, we are rubbing shoulders with the world's leading tech organizations. And, you know, it's coming out that more partnerships are coming. So a lot of
Yeah.
the things we would love to announce, it's hard because the enterprise space has a lot of secrecy required, you know, NDAs. But once things are public, you know, we're just happy to share the progress we're making.
Yeah, I know. I mean, absolutely. And I appreciate you sharing the information that you are sharing because you're going deep. And I know that all the listeners, they're definitely going to appreciate it. And, for me, you don't even have to announce it. I mean, the co-chair, Iotex, Amazon, Huawei, all together, I mean, that just, it says enough. You don't even have to go in depth on that. So, yeah, man, I'm just excited for what the future holds. But like I heard, I want to know. I don't know if I'm saying his name correctly. Rollin.
Yeah, Rowland.
Rollin. Yeah, I heard him in I think it was an AMA a while back. But he mentioned that his ultimate goal was to have the Internet of Things connected with the cars, working with the cars.
Mm-hmm.
How far along? I don't know if you can even tell me this, but how far along are you guys on that? I mean, because it seems like you're moving pretty quickly. Like you've had the foot to the pedal.
Yeah, the space is really interesting, right? I think the automotive space is kind of like the holy grail for a lot of mobility, blockchain, IoT type of companies because these are moving computers, right? Like when we start to talk about battery powered devices and things like that, honestly, it's going to be a while until blockchain is really built into all of those battery powered devices because reading the blockchain and scanning it is a battery intensive thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you're not just pulling from one source, you need to constantly read the blockchain for updates. Then, fully powered machines like Bitcoin mining servers and pluggable, plug-in cameras, they suit that purpose fine, right? But if we're talking about those sensors, it's a bit tricky. The fact is that these cars are literally just kind of like skeletons on top of which all these IoT devices are layered on top of them now these days, right? Every car has a temperature sensor. Every car probably has GPS. Very advanced ECUs, electrical control units, is basically all of the things that power your seatbelt, your steering wheel. This is all being digitized, right? And if we start to think about, you live in LA, right? How
Yep.
much time you spend on the road and how much data your car has been collecting, and then
Mm.
the fact that you own none of that data is a really weird for two reasons, right? One is, well, the first reason is like, who's seeing that information? Whatever car you drive, is the fact that I connect my phone through Wi-Fi to this car, does that mean like all my GPS data is being put somewhere? Who knows, right?
Right. Yeah, we
Fact
don't
is,
think about that.
you don't really think about it, right? But the other thing is, if they are doing something to my data and selling it, why am I not getting a kickback off of that, right? It's literally, you're using the derivative of my physical activity to, all this driving information. Think about the route you drive 24/7, or not 20, just 365 days a year, right? If
Right.
you aggregate that information and you can tell people that, hey, on Tuesday mornings, there's less traffic, and I can prove it to you, that information you can sell to all these delivery companies,
Mm.
all these
Very true.
transportation companies. Maybe you're not going to get like the thousands and hundreds of thousands of dollars people want, but at least you're getting something, right?
Right.
Even if it's in the form of cryptocurrency that you can redeem for something else, free gas, free tires. There's so much opportunity there, but the fact is none of that is going to exist until we own this data, right?
Mm.
Outright as a property right. Then you flip the entire ecosystem of vertically integrated revenue generating applications that are owned exclusively by Google and Facebook and Amazon and the like, and you basically break that very rigid type of layer, and all of the value, all of the data, and all of the control is distributed to consumers. This is what we're building with blockchain, and on top of that, you can start to build more decentralized stuff on top, right? But yeah, I mean, I think the automotive space is super cool, not only because of the two things I mentioned there, but because the use of that data has uh, real interesting kind of parallels to what the insurance space in DeFi is working on right now, right? Think
Mm.
about if you got in an accident, right? What's the typical process? You tell your insurance company, they'll do some type of investigation over 3 to 6 months. I'm still waiting on like some deductibles payments from me getting hit by someone like from 2 years ago. So,
Right,
you
right.
know, if
So am
I
I.
could have had a camera, a dash cam, just like the way UCam works, where I own all the video, and I could provide that and say, hey, I'm not at fault. You don't even have to do the investigation. I have the data, and I can prove that it was taken on this day because it's time stamped on the blockchain and it hasn't been changed after the fact. That's going to save you 2 years of time, and it's going to save the insurance companies a lot of time too, right? But you got to
Right.
think about why insurance companies don't do this today is because I feel like a lot of the money they make is off the legal side, right? They want the complexity because that's how they, don't pay people on time. So, all this data around like, even if I can prove to an insurance company that, hey, I never drove past the speed limit ever, right? Imagine how much your premium could go down if you could just provide verifiable information proactively to your insurance provider, right? If you're a crazy driver and you don't want them to know, that's your choice not to share the information that you own with your insurance company, right? So it's
Mm.
all about choice here, I think. And
Yeah.
what these devices and owning our data really does is give us these choices.
Yeah, it gives you a sense of power. I mean, because it's like an artist, a recording artist that doesn't own their masters.
That's exactly, I just talked about this with on another podcast, right? And
Mm.
Kanye's tweet rant was really inspiring to me. It's like, how is it the fact that all this time we put into the studio writing these records, putting together the tracks, and we have no ownership of the final output? That's just insane, right? So what's going on in the music industry? I think a lot of people are shedding their desires for physical ownership, right? Like, tell me,
Mm.
millennials these days aren't buying cars, they're not buying houses, but you see the urge to want to own their digital footprint more and more, right? Just as,
Yeah.
like, think about, back in the days, right? Like, take it back to the 90s when we had VHS cameras. Remember those giant things where
Yep.
we would
Yep.
take a home video and we would stock our shelves with them? And those were outright ours because it didn't exist anywhere else except the copy that we had, right?
Right. Right.
That's exactly what we're doing with UCAM, but with digital form. And I think that once people start to understand this concept, that, maybe it's going to require some applications where it really shows them that, like, wow, if I didn't own my information, then this would have never happened, right? I think that's going to really be the trigger moment for everyone to realize, like, the world doesn't need to work this way. Why are we abiding by these rules that, maybe worked in the past in the 2000s, but in the 2010s, there's a reason why there's headline after headline, and there's a reason why Kanye is going crazy. I mean, it's a real issue. So I think that using blockchain to solve these real issues is something that's just really exciting to think about.
Yeah. And two, I think it also results back to people wanting things uh, quickly, quicker. Like artists.
Yeah.
They take the deal knowing they're going to sign over. They're not going to own their masters because it's easier. So the same thing with people who use Google. And these and they take your data. It's because it's simpler. We just sign up. We sign over the data.
Yeah, exactly. And that was the big challenge for us to create this camera, right? It's, how do we make this camera more secure and more private, but not change the user experience, right? Like, it has to, the biggest part of any blockchain product is the login process, right? Anyone that's used a ledger before for the first time, that process has to be uh, easy. It has to be simple. It has to be intuitive, right? So the fact that we built this kind of like one-click setup process for non-crypto users, of course, we have to teach them that, backing up your private key is important. But what's really interesting, like, I've been in this crypto space, for maybe 3-4 years now, and I feel like the definition of private key is so ingrained into my head that this is not the way that other people, when you introduce them to the word private key, if you introduce them to the fact that this is a key to your privacy, they love it. They're like, why don't I have private keys for everything, right?
Right.
It's just the fact that when you say, oh, this private key is the key to your magical money that's minted off this blockchain that, you know, assumes its value because of like agreeable, you lose people with the complexity of what's being built on top of blockchain, when the real root of what we're talking about is decentralization and self-sovereignty, right? And everyone wants that stuff, but not everyone wants cryptocurrency. They just
Right.
want to be owners of their data and their funds, right? So I think that, you know, having this device to introduce them into this is really quite interesting. And rather than introducing someone to cryptocurrency to get them into using blockchain and IoT products, we're
Right.
doing it the other way, where
Yeah,
we
makes sense.
introduce them through blockchain and IoT, and we can convert these people, you know, to cryptocurrency at a later time, right?
Yeah, I mean, I like that. I like the angle, and I like the approach. Now, you mentioned, you said they may not want cryptocurrency, but do you want cryptocurrency, Larry Peng?
I love cryptocurrency, man. I mean, I think that the the kind of the weird tentacles that are sprouting out from cryptocurrency are a little, you know, tricky at times. But I think everyone's just trying to, like, you know, be innovative, right? I think the people that you can look at in the industry that are really innovating, they're doing some really cool stuff now. But there's still a lot of noise, right? Like every year has its own flavor of noise that really dampens uh, the masses kind of view of crypto, right?
Hmm.
2017, we had the ICO stuff. 2018, I mean, it was just a really down year in 2018. So price was kind of the barrier. 2019, same thing, you know, price was just picking up, a regulation and all this stuff was really weird. 2020, now we have all this DeFi stuff where, you know, people are putting their money into unwarranted or unaudited smart contracts. But above and beyond all this noise, you can feel the foundational base growing very, very solidly, right? To the
Yes,
point where, like, yes, maybe that like 90% of stablecoins out there are not legit, or maybe, you know, 90% of these DeFi projects out there are not legit, but that 10% that are, like, they're doing some really cool stuff. So, I mean,
absolutely.
I think the cryptocurrency space is just getting started, and the more people that digest, you know, owning a digital key to that may represent their identity or access to their home videos, the more people that will trust the private key to manage funds, I think, you know. We
Yeah,
see,
and
yeah.
I'm sorry about that.
No,
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 I'm
go
just saying I agree. And let me ask this. It's kind of funny to me, but what about getting a UCAM for police and store it on a public ledger so that we can the footage would stay there?
That's what I was thinking about too, man. I actually had some conversations with people that, you know, dabble in, you know, every police stations like operate like most government entities, where they will put out kind of like requests for proposals about, you know, how to add new tech to their force and things like that, right? So
Right.
I talked to one of my buddies that works in fulfilling purchase orders for police stations for all kinds of tech like radios and things like that. I'm like, so tell me about this camera space, right? Like all of these issues about, you know, minorities being assaulted and the camera's always off. Like, what the hell is up with that, right? Like, why is the
Right.
body camera even turn offable? And where does that footage go? Why is it not a public ledger, right? And I mean, I think you just got to go to, it's not the people that are asked to fulfill this tech that can't. It's just not in the request for purchase. You know, it's like I think there's some type of, you know, control that they want to have, rightfully so, right? There's a balance to this. We can't just have every single minute of, you know, footage captured, but there has to be some type of balance where, you know, blockchain can be the infrastructure that everybody trusts, right? And
Right.
when we start to talk about cameras in the enterprise space, their requirements are very simple, right? They want cameras, systems that are shared, even with competitors, that is trustworthy and no one can tamper with it, meaning you can't delete the videos, you can't modify the videos, and that's it. They just want immutable video. How cool is that, right?
Yeah, that's
And you
dope.
don't have to layer on all these bells and whistles. You just give them the fundamental things that you need. It's undeletable video, and prove to me that it's undeletable. And then that's already going to change the game, right? But
Right.
I think, yeah.
No, that's true. We have too many options. Just like even today. Back in the day, we used to have just a regular apple. Now we have three different kind of apples. Organic, this type. It's like, why is that necessary?
Right.
But it's just too
To
much
use that
going
food
on.
example, but to use that food example, I think this is something that, I don't know about you. I live in San Francisco, right? People are health freaks out here. Um, but over the past 3 years, I've noticed the attention to people's health grow insanely, right?
Yeah,
Maybe it's because, the marketing for healthcare products is getting better. Whatever the reason, people are more conscious about what foods they put in their bodies, right? Trying different diets, trying different, brands of products. Why are we not doing the same thing for the devices that we put in our homes,
very
right?
true.
So,
Very true.
the fact is not really a privacy nutrition facts that you can find on your products when you go shopping at Best Buy, right? But it's important that you look into the technology and not just go off the marketing things, right? Like when McDonald's says, God bless McDonald's, I love the place, but like when they say we have 100% white meat chicken, uh, I don't know about that, you know?
Yeah.
I don't know. You're gonna have to get a third party to verify that for me, right?
It
So,
is a
and
white meat, but we don't know what kind of meat.
I know exactly. I saw something on the news today where it said like, I don't know what the I didn't look into the story, but there's another headline, right? Like
Right.
Subway bread is deemed not bread by
Right.
some like Swedish
Right.
court or something like. Okay, so they're lying about bread now, right? So
Yeah.
like you can't
Well.
take these things at face value, right? You got to look at the nutrition facts, and without a regulatory authority that's verifying these claims. Let me give you another example, right? Zoom, the thing that we're on right now to record this podcast. This thing is already 150 billion with the B dollar company, and they got caught lying about the type of encryption that they use. They claimed end-to-end encryption, which is what we verifiably have built into UCAM, but they
Right.
actually use client-to-server encryption, where all that means all of your data is naked on their centralized server, but
Wow.
everything outside of that server is encrypted, right? Which is good, but it doesn't solve the biggest issue, which is the fact that our decrypted data is in their hands, right? So if a company like that is public and already being watched by SEC and kind of the consumer protection agencies, then what are we talking about here? You can't trust what you see, especially from companies that are trying to sell you products. You need to verify it yourself. And to that point, we have a full UCAM white paper out there. Really details every part of technical architecture because we got nothing to hide with this camera.
Right.
So
Right.
that's just something I think. There's so many parallels to this, man. I think about privacy in the United States, much the same way about how we've addressed COVID in a lot of ways, right? I think regardless of what you think about COVID, there is a big part of the population that addresses this as an issue, but hasn't taken the individual steps to bring us to a collective safe place, right? So just the same thing as privacy, everyone knows this is an issue, right? You got to be living under a rock to not see all these headlines about, Apple this, Google that, Facebook this, Amazon that, right? It's like, this is an issue, but what are you doing about it to, delete Facebook, use products that are more user centric? It's a slow but steady process, but I think we can all do our part. It's beneficial for individuals and also the collective society, I think.
Oh yeah. 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 I agree. I agree. And that's why I'm trying to do my part. Because I think UCAM is going to be interesting. How many UCAMs do you think I need for my house?
It depends on how you use it, man. Like I have a few in my apartment right now. So I actually had a lot of my packages stolen lately. SF has a really bad problem with that.
Oh
So I
wow.
installed one. Right. I mean, I live in this kind of like 3 unit building.
Uh huh.
So we have one right in the entryway that we can check on. You know, uh, the mail delivery. I think a lot of
Right.
the packages we get delivered, we get some like food delivery, and they end up stealing the package that's in the
Damn.
hallway. So I mean, we haven't caught anybody yet. We haven't had any packages stolen recently, but I feel safer there. We have one in the garage, and we have one right pointing just at the doorway. We don't really
Wow.
put. I live with a roommate, so You know, we don't really want this pointing like in the living room. Like we also want our privacy from ourselves, right? But from
Right,
like a
right.
security point of view, if we were to put a camera in our homes, has to be private, man. Like, how can you think about giving Amazon the footage of your indoor home, right? Like, you know, I'm fine with Spotify knowing my listening history, even if it's embarrassing, right? Like everyone likes their own music. But like, you know, when you're talking about things like uh, when my mail comes every day, when I'm home, when my dog sleeps, like, you know, all this information, like people don't need to know this stuff. And I think, you know, Edward Snowden has this really good quote. He says that saying that you don't care about privacy because you have nothing to hide is like saying um, you don't care about free speech because you have nothing to say, right?
Mm,
You're giving up the fundamental right, you know, that maybe you don't need now, but you know, the way the world, I mean, the way our country is trending, you know, it's not out of the question that we have some type of, you know, very serious civil unrest the way that this election goes. Either way, right? Either way, it could happen. So, I mean, I think the fact that we have our privacy, we have peace of mind in these crazy times is, you know, we got to rely on ourselves more and more, not on these corporations and governments that, you know,
yeah.
maybe don't have our best interest in mind.
No, you're absolutely right about that. So now let me ask you, what made you guys come up with this the Mimo Dex? Was it because of the whole DeFi craze going on right now, or was this something that you guys planned to do already because you knew this is where things were maturing?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, earlier I mentioned like the full ecosystem picture we were talking about, right? So,
Uh-huh.
I mean, let me go back to that a bit. Blockchain without value transfer is, you know, it's just a database. You know, the ability to transfer value, whether it's represented in a cryptocurrency or an IoT data set or an NFT that defines ownership of a device, transferring value amongst others that don't necessarily trust each other. This is a fundamental beauty of blockchain that I think is very silly to overlook, right? A
Mm.
lot of people relate that concept to DeFi. It is DeFi, but everyone has a different definition for DeFi. If we take it at, you know, face value, decentralized finance, yes, finance is the act of moving value amongst different entities, but it doesn't mean yield farming or Ponzi scams or Ponzi schemes or scams. You know, that it's kind of shifted into over the past, you know, even just like a couple of months, right? I think that phase is over, but what's the next phase is now NFTs, but this is all under that decentralized finance umbrella, right? We're
Right.
not going full DeFi, but we need the infrastructure to enable value transfer on our platform, which is why we took September to really focus on a lot of what people would call DeFi infrastructure. We built an interoperability bridge to bring ERC20 tokens from Ethereum to Iotex. So right now, people are, and the next step was to build a decentralized exchange that supported both ERC20 tokens and Iotex tokens. So the way people are using this is they're starting to trade, you know, Iotex and Ethereum pairs, Iotex and Bitcoin pairs, Iotex and USD pairs, Iotex and gold. It's basically giving them all the functionality that they would have from a centralized exchange, but making it on a decentralized exchange. And I think, you know, I think it's just funny that a lot of projects are announcing dexes and
That's
getting a lot of attention. But we literally built something that is already functioning, but this is not the end goal for that dex, right?
right.
Going back to the full ecosystem picture, all these own your data devices that we're talking about, whether they're the UCAMs now or the wearables that represent your health data in the future, we want to allow people to tokenize this data and monetize it in different ways, whether
Huh.
it's like providing a data point to a smart contract. You know, think about a prediction market. If you wanted to make a bet, is it hotter in Italy today or is it hotter in New York? Rather than going with the votes of a community, you can use a trusted IoT device that, you know, will give you that information, right?
Right.
So being a data provider through your IoT devices is one big opportunity. the other big opportunity is just tokenizing the data sets that you own into something that's tradable and represented by something like an NFT, right? So going back to that driving history of like multiple years driving this route, you can tokenize that and, you know, issue it and sell it to other people. But you need the value exchange infrastructure, and that's what that Nemo Dex is all about, right? So right now it's already serving a purpose of bringing decentralized trading to the Iotex community. In the future, we're just going to be layering on more and more types of assets, not just cryptocurrencies, but tokens that represent real world and physically backed products and kind of data sets. You know?
So
That's the bigger picture, man. That's the bigger picture.
That's actually groundbreaking.
Yeah, but you see kind of where the starting point is, right? Like without data to tokenize, there is no DeFi OT, as we call it, right? You need these own your data devices. And we're just getting started with that. But the future vision, you know, I've always said Iotex's mission is to provide trusted data and trusted devices to application builders. And on top of that trusted foundation, they can build really, really cool stuff that no other network can do, right? No one's doing IoT and blockchain like us, I think.
I don't think so.
Yeah, I
mean, you have people that say I bring up IOTA, but I don't think it's the same ballgame, honestly.
I mean, I don't like to talk shit about other projects, but I think I just point to our successes and our milestones that we've achieved in 2 years that, you know, a lot of projects that have been around for 4 years, 5 years, like IOTA haven't, right? We have a fully functioning mainnet with, you know, 60 plus delegates running for 1+ years now. We have multiple working IoT products that, you know, don't just use blockchain as a novelty, but really addressing security and privacy issues that, you know, are plaguing our fundamental trust. So, I mean, but again, it's always important to have the context around it, right? IOTA is building something that is not, you know, blockchain as Iotex, or sorry, distributed ledger as Iotex defines it, right? They're building a DAG-based ecosystem, which is just different technology, different research, and still, you know, they're making headway, right? So, I mean, you know, you got to respect what they do, but I think there's a new challenger in town. I mean, for people that look at IoT as like without deep understanding, they'll compare based on the partnerships and the products and I guess the company that you rub shoulders with, right? So,
but that's why you got to dig deeper.
Right. I mean, it's always been an uphill battle because those guys were kind of first into this blockchain IoT thing, allowed them to sign a lot of really interesting partnerships, some of which that made no sense though. Like they partnered with the United Nations and I haven't heard a single thing after that, right? So they played it well, right? I mean, you gotta think about this crypto game as strategic also, right? Like they had their cards, they played them really well in the beginning, and now we're playing our cards, even though we got a later start. You know, I think that the pace that we've made, the progress that we made, even just think about this past month, man. We launched a cross-chain DEX, we launched UCAM on Amazon, and we launched 2 pretty marquee partnerships just in a single month. And we're not slowing down from here, right? So I think, yeah, there's just a new player in town who will let people do their own research as far as, you know, the goals, the unique goals of our projects and our competitors. But I mean, I think that it's undeniable what we're building here.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's fascinating, and I think, I from my research, I knew you guys were onto something huge. And, you know, even myself, I have to do more research because there's just so much to Iotex that I don't know. And I think you've cleared up a lot of things that we weren't aware of. And I mean, I'm really appreciative. And, you know, it's like, you guys are smart people. I mean, you went to MIT, you know, you came from you were a captain of the tennis team to a trader intern at Merrill Lynch to now head of blockchain, head of business development at Iotex. How did you get to this point? Like,
Yeah.
Did you even know? Did you start off knowing you were going to get into the blockchain space, or?
No, no, not at all, man. I mean, I graduated MIT in like 2013, right? And um, those that, I always did a lot of trading and finance internships and things like that in college. But those that graduate college and don't know what they want to do generally go into consulting. So I
Right.
went into consulting. Um, Usually people stay only for 2 years and go to B school or something like that. But I found a really good fit at the consulting shop that I was with, and just like a really steady growth through promotions and things like that. So I think that I was given the opportunity at a really young age to do a lot of leadership in projects, in these consulting projects. And the thing I most realized, remember from that time, and you got to understand, I'm not a cocky guy, right?
Right.
But the the quality of the executives at these Fortune 500 companies was really surprisingly kind of low, right? And I think that that was what wanted that that's what made me want to jump into the startup world, where, rather than talking about 3-year timelines for massive system rebuilds to the tune of like hundreds of millions of dollars, like I wanted to do more sprints, like 1 month sprint. We're going to launch this product and get out there. And I just found a lot of excitement in the crypto space, right? Like the first time I was introduced to Bitcoin was through a project we were doing with the World Economic Forum. And it was really interesting. We were looking at different financial payments trends that were providing more inclusion across the world. Like there's a solution in Kenya called M-Pesa, and it basically leapfrogged the entire traditional banking system. There's no checking, there's no banks, regional like consumer facing banks in rural parts of Kenya. But what they did is they instituted mobile to mobile payments without any checking account, right? It's kind of like, you remember those calling cards that everyone bought back in
Yep.
the day, like $20 credits? You
Yep.
just buy
Yep.
credits for text messages, which allowed people to pay each other. And you just buy these cards and refill them at your corner store, right? On top of all this really cool stuff that was like bringing new financial opportunity to less fortunate areas, Bitcoin came up in the context of sending money cross border, right? Remittances. There was already a huge volume. This is back in like 2016. There was already a huge volume of Bitcoin remittances. And that's when I started to think about like, why does Western Union have to exist? You're paying hundreds of dollars to send money when all the only thing that's happening is you're sending ones and zeros from one place to another, right? And that's why Bitcoin really caught my attention. And I started, I mean, everyone talks about the rabbit hole they go down. I think it's pretty silly, but like I did go down a rabbit hole, but it's not like a rabbit hole of confusion and awe. Like I went through like a personal rabbit hole of like questioning, why the hell does everything in the world have to work this way, right? Like
Right.
why I really like, against the backdrop of everything I learned in my 5 years in consulting, working for the world's biggest companies, to then questioning, why does this company even exist, right? You can digitize this, you can automate it, you can, so like, then I started, I think over the past 3 years at Iotex, really given me a lot of opportunity to brainstorm about, if we didn't have restrictions, how can we design new places to operate, right? And I think that we're in a tricky space where the existing Internet of Things is already very well established, but what we're doing is we're not trying to convince people that there's people like my mom out there that doesn't even if I spent the whole day with her, she's not going to understand what I'm saying here about end-to-end encryption and things like that, right?
Right. Right.
And for them it's tricky, right? But there is a large population, especially in our country, that would almost live in a side ecosystem to the traditional banking and traditional Internet of Things kind of things, because they want to own their shit, right? They want to have the
Right.
control. And I think we just got to be careful, right? We can't be saying, hey, everyone needs to get on this blockchain wave. It's people that have the desire to live this lifestyle that blockchain is proposing. They're going to find it naturally through products like UCAM and through projects like Iotex. So I think we're still still not fully there yet as far as the industry and the mass adoption is concerned. And we have big goals for UCAM. Even if it doesn't reach mass adoption, meaning like reaching millions of people all over the world, at least it's going to have adoption from the masses, which I think is already super important and paves the way for stuff, right? So
yeah, I mean, like I said, I actually got the email today that mine was on the way. So it's kind of funny how that works out. And I can't wait to share it, and I think UCAM, Iotex are doing big things. I think we're going to be surprised at the way adoption comes about. I think it's going to be unexpectedly a different outcome. I don't think it's going to take that long.
Yeah, man. I mean, let me ask you a question. So if you, from your perspective, what types of other devices out there would you say people are the most sensitive about outside of the cameras, which, I think we started with cameras. Why we start with cameras is also the thing that freaks people out the most, right? So
right.
To start with the sensitive stuff. But what else is sensitive these days?
The phone is the most sensitive. Our computers, laptops. What else would be sensitive? Maybe
like wearable, like health devices and stuff.
Yeah, watches, health devices. Maybe I mean, it could be TVs.
Right.
What's it called?
Appliances.
Yeah, I mean, like even these earphones, like the AirPods. I don't know, what else is going on in here. I just know it's digital. I mean, it's it's Bluetooth, but what else is happening?
Right. I think there's an interesting saying that this is one of the reasons why I thought Bitcoin was so cool. They broke it down like, to make a banking transaction, what are the necessary fields you need, right? And all you need are three things, which is what a blockchain transaction is: sender, receiver, value. You don't need to know my address. You don't need to know my location. Right. You don't need to know, I don't have to give you access to my microphone or my photos or all these things we see all the time on our phones these days, right? So I think that, is just, once people start to question, like, okay, if you want me to pay this toll gate or something like that, why do you need to know my address? Why do you need to know all of this information about me? And once people start to understand that the reason they want to know more about you is because it has value to them, and that value doesn't come back to you in any way, then why are we playing the game in their definition,
Absolutely. No, I mean, you're absolutely right about that. And, let me ask you one last question, because I know we're coming up on our 3:30 mark. But I don't know if you can even tell me this, but what cryptos do you hold in your portfolio?
It's a good question, man. I hold a lot of Bitcoin. I got a good stack of Ethereum just so I can try to run a validator. I think it's important to experiment and do things on other networks, just to also improve like Iotex's staking and things like that. And I cycle between a lot of stuff, man. I think this DeFi thing had me looking into a lot of the insurance stuff. So I have a little bit of Nexus right now. I know some other people are doing some private sales for kind of smart contract verification stuff. So I'm kind of watching that stuff pretty closely. I just think like, you just got to react to, just like there's like attempts to break support and resistance bands in the trading world, there's also support and resistance bands in technical adoption, right? And I think that this whole DeFi yield farming wave really pushed the resistance level of smart contracts that are unverified, right? So I think this whole smart contract insurance thing is going to be the support that's generated from that push to break the resistance, right? So it's kind of like, just in trading, you have higher highs, and you hit, and lower low or higher lows, and I don't know, you know what I'm saying, right?
Yeah, I got you.
Steady growth. I think the same thing is happening. So for all the traders out there that are more, less, statistical focus, more trends and that type of thing focused, then I would urge you to just think about the things that blockchain has tried to do in the past year and where the missing pieces are. I think the whole thing about the fact that Chainlink and Band and all these Oracle things blew up. I did hold a little bit of Chainlink back in the day, but sold a little too early. I think it's not hard to predict this stuff, right? Like, what is the missing component to DeFi? It was oracles. Okay, now what? What is the next missing component? It's minus security to have consumers go into this kind of stuff. Even if the smart contract implodes, you still have some insurance on it, right? It's going to allow people to jump into that more clearly. And same thing in what that we're doing in the IoT space, right? Like, what's the problem? Security and privacy. Okay, let's address that head on. So, from that perspective, just want to mention IoT is already $1 trillion industry. And, the fact that we're bringing privacy and security to it, even if we capture 1% of that $1 trillion market, I think you can do the math. That's already $10 billion, right? So not putting financial advice in people's heads, but just know this IoT market eventually is going to be the next big thing for blockchain, I think.
Do you hold Iotex?
Of course, man, of course.
Well, I have to ask that. The viewers want to know. But now,
yeah,
I mean...
dude. And that's the struggle I have. I'm not a good trader. I'm not going to pretend like I know everything about this stuff, but, I'd rather just hold onto my own coin. I think that at the position we are, I think, not financial advice, I think we're in a great position to move up pretty well. Because if you just think about from the objective things that we've done, mainnet live, multiple language SDKs live, cross-chain DEX live, very active staking, about 50% of all tokens staked, and now launching real products, partnering with public companies. We tick the boxes as far as what we need to classify us in the same category as these big boys. But I think the industry we're in is just a little different than what people are used to. When we say we partner with WiseKey, a massive IoT chip manufacturer, no one's heard of WiseKey because it's a very IoT niche specific thing. But if you start to look at the clients they serve, the number of chips they have distributed, then from like a objective basis, this is probably one of the biggest partnerships that's been, announced in, kind of recent history. It just has to require a layer deeper.
Well, yeah, I'm going to go deeper on that now that you mentioned that. I'm definitely going to look into WiseKey and see what they got going on, because I know my intuition is never wrong. And there's just something special about Iotex. There's something special about the team. You guys are nice. You guys are very open. And that's why I reached out to you, because I see you're pretty chill, And I appreciate this interview. I appreciate your time. And I know you're busy out there, and I know you got to get back to playing some tennis. You still playing tennis?
I picked up golf after college, man. But
okay.
I had some good times playing. College tennis is a lot more fun than the tennis I grew up playing, which is very, my parents watching over my shoulder and making sure I think the whole team tennis thing, the fact that you can actually make noise during a kind of yuppie sport is really cool. So, I just have really fond memories of the tennis days, but playing more golf, playing more basketball these days. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's what's up. I can't play tennis or golf, but, it is what it is. I have gone to go hit a couple times, but, I've never played, what are you going, 18 holes? 19 holes?
Yeah,
I guess it just depends what golf course you're at.
Yeah.
But yeah, I want to learn one day. I smoke cigars, but I haven't played golf yet. But I'm going to do it one day.
That's the thing, man. There's two types of golfers, right? People that take it too seriously and people that don't take it too seriously. And you definitely want to be in the latter. You take a six pack, take some cigars out on the course with your boys. It's impossible not to have a good afternoon. You know what I mean? So.
No, I know that's right. Well, when everything goes well and the industry, we have to meet up and go golfing. I need smart friends around me, And you're a smart guy. And I like I said, man, I appreciate your time. I thank you very much. I can't wait to get my UCAM. Ladies and gentlemen, this was Larry Payne from Iotex, Head of Business Development. You know who this is. This is your boy. Thank you for the likes, subscribes. Don't forget, check out the Patreon. This is Bigger Than Race. Investigate truth on your own terms.